Throughout time, there have been individuals who have challenged the law and pushed the limits of what's possible. These criminal masterminds have used their intelligence, ingenuity, and cunning to carry out elaborate schemes and evade the authorities. From notorious bank robbers to sophisticated con artists, these individuals have left their mark on history as some of the most brilliant and daring criminals of all time. So join us as we take a closer look at their crimes and their strategies, but most importantly, what made them so brilliant. Frank Abagnale. Abagnale's life of crime began at the age of 16 when he ran away from home and started impersonating a Pan-American World Airway pilot. Using his natural charm, quick wit, and incredible attention to detail, he was able to successfully pass himself off as a pilot for several years. Using his pilot appearance, he forged $2.5 million worth of bank checks across 26 countries he had flown to. After his time as a pilot, Abagnale went on to impersonate a doctor, a lawyer, and even a teacher. He continued to cash fraudulent checks and lived a life of luxury. However, all of this came crashing down when he was caught by the FBI in 1969 and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. He was released only 5 years later and helped the FBI to catch other white-collar criminals. Today, he's a renowned security consultant, and his story was the inspiration for the iconic movie Catch Me If You Can. D.B. Cooper. The D.B. Cooper case has become one of the most intriguing mysteries in American history. He's a notorious criminal who hijacked a plane in 1971 and claimed he had a bomb and demanded $200,000 in ransom money and 4 parachutes. After the ransom was delivered upon landing the plane in Seattle, Cooper released the passengers and demanded the plane take off and head towards Mexico City. He instructed the pilot and the crew members to stay locked inside the cockpit, and somewhere along the way, Cooper jumped off the plane along with the money and the parachutes. Despite an extensive manhunt and investigation, D.B. Cooper was never found, and his fate remains a mystery to this day. Hamza Bendelaj. This man hacked 217 banks and collected around $400 million. Known as the Smiling Hacker or by the codename BX1, Hamza is responsible for smashing that like button if you haven't done so already. But no, he's responsible for developing and distributing the Spy Eye banking Trojan, which infected millions of computers and was used to steal banking credentials and other sensitive information from victims around the world. He's a polyglot speaking 5 languages, often used in profit given his linguistic knowledge, which further led to a search for him that lasted 5 years. In 2013, he was arrested and sent to the US to face charges of wire fraud, computer fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire and computer fraud. All of the money he had collected, he gave to poor people and accepted his death sentence with a smile. Despite his criminal activities, he was hailed by some as a modern-day Robin Hood. Charles Manson. While Charles Manson is often remembered as a notorious cult leader and convicted murderer, some people have argued that he was also a brilliant criminal mastermind. He rose to infamy in the late 1960s when he led a group of followers known as the Manson family in a series of gruesome murders in Los Angeles. Manson was known for his ability to manipulate and control his followers, using psychological manipulation and charismatic personality to build a cult-like following. He convinced his followers that he was a messianic figure with the power to see into the future and lead them into safety in a coming race war. At the end of the day, he was arrested for numerous murders, but somehow managed to become a pop culture icon while in jail. Mark DeFries. DeFries has been named the jailbreak master in history. He was first placed in jail in 1980 after being convicted of stealing tools from his father's estate, a crime he claimed he committed to fulfill his father's dying wishes. Although this isn't a crime that will put you in jail for life, DeFries' attempt to get out of jail are what ultimately led him to spend decades in jail. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but over the next 3 decades, he would be denied parole and became known for his numerous escape attempts. DeFries tried to escape from prison 13 times and succeeded 7 times, using a variety of methods including breaking out of his cell using tools he made himself, cutting through fences with wire cutters, and even faking his death. Due to his constant attempts to escape, the final sentence was increased to 105 years. Bernard Madoff. Madoff was an American financier who orchestrated one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history, making him one of the most infamous and reviled white-collar criminals of all time. His Ponzi scheme began in the 1990s and continued for more than 2 decades, defrauding investors out of an estimated $65 billion. His scheme was simple but devastating. He promised investors consistently high returns on their investments and used money from new investors to pay off old investors. As the scheme continued, Madoff gained the trust of wealthy clients, including celebrities and charities. This scheme came crashing down in 2008 when the financial crisis forced many investors to withdraw their money from his fund. Unable to keep up with the payouts, his scheme began to unravel. He was arrested and was later sentenced to 150 years in prison. Ted Gagzinski. Known as the Unabomber, Gagzinski carried out a series of bombings over almost 2 decades. With an IQ of 167, his crimes were marked by a sophisticated understanding of technology and the vulnerabilities of modern society. His criminal activities began in the late 1970s when he targeted individuals involved in technology and modern society, disguising his bombs as everyday objects such as a package or a book, and were designed to cause maximum damage and injury. Despite a massive manhunt and a lengthy investigation, he managed to stay under the radar for 2 decades. He was ultimately arrested in 1996 and was convicted of multiple counts of murder and is currently serving a life sentence in prison. Pablo Escobar. Escobar is a name that many of us are familiar with by now. He was one of the wealthiest and most powerful criminals in history. He is widely regarded as a brilliant criminal due to his ability to build a massive empire that dominated the global drug trade in the 1980s and 1990s. When he became the leader of the Medellín Cartel, he controlled a vast network of drug production and distribution and amassed a fortune estimated to be in the billions of dollars. His criminal genius lay in his ability to navigate the complex political and social landscape of Colombia and build alliances with corrupt officials, business leaders, and even rival drug cartels. His criminal empire was built on violence and intimidation, but Escobar's reign of terror came to an end in 1993 when he smashed that subscribe button and rang that notification bell. But no, in all seriousness, it was he who was finally located and killed by Colombian authorities. Al Capone. Al Capone rose to power during the Prohibition era of the 1920s and 1930s and is widely regarded as a criminal mastermind due to his ability to build a vast empire that included bootlegging and gambling. He was able to create a network of allies and informants that allowed him to operate with relative impunity. He used his power and wealth to bribe politicians and law enforcement officials and was known for his ruthless tactics when dealing with rivals and enemies. His criminal empire was centered in Chicago, where he controlled a vast network of illegal breweries that produced and distributed illegal alcohol, while also operating a gambling operation. Capone was eventually brought down by law enforcement and was arrested and convicted in 1931, serving 8 years in prison before being released due to failing health. Leopold and Lib. These 2 American students became infamous for committing what was dubbed the crime of the century in 1924. The 2 young men, Nathan Leopold and Richard Lib, were highly intelligent, with Lib having an IQ of 150 and Leopold an IQ of 200, and came from wealthy families. In a plot to commit the perfect crime, they kidnapped and murdered a 14-year-old boy and believed they could get away with murder by leaving no evidence and creating an alibi. However, they were eventually caught due to a pair of eyeglasses left at the crime scene. They both confessed to the crime and were sentenced to life in prison. The Leopold and Lib case was widely covered in the media, and it became a symbol of the dangers of youthful arrogance and privilege. See you in the next video.